Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan welcoming you back to Season 4 of the Mindshare Podcast. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems and the Buzz Conference. Now, be sure to mark your calendars right now for Disruption 2022, which is taking place September 7th and 8th, located at the Liberty Grand in Toronto, Canada. Sure to be another incredible event put on by the Buzz Conference. So be sure to follow the Buzz Conference on Instagram at the Buzz Conference and give them a visit at www.thebuzzconference.com to keep up with everything they are up to. We are proud to have the Buzz Conference as an ongoing sponsor of the Mindshare Podcast. Kits is always with us. Of course, they are with us. And as always, I have to tell you that we just keep coming up with new, amazing tools. And well, you've got to check it out for yourself. I mean, if you haven't gone over to mindshare101.com yet, click on marketing to learn more about this powerful marketing system that realtors are using on a regular basis to create massive growth in their businesses, ongoing machines in the background that are driving even more business, creating more opportunity, building that mind share so that you can get more market share. Well, I mean, hey, as I tell you every week, I could go on and on and on, but what you need to do right now, actually, no, hold that thought. Give me a minute here. We've got a podcast to do. But right after this podcast, I want you to go to mindshare101.com, click on marketing, connect with my team, and learn more about this powerful system. I mean, when you talk about, a CRM that's connected to, of course, your contact list, your calendar, and your marketing, the three main pillars you need of a CRM. It's got all the outputs that you need. It's got websites and landing pages, email blasts, social media content. I mean, you name it. The list goes on and on and on. So again, check it out, mindshare101.com. Click on marketing. As you know, we are on a push to get to 100 reviews on iTunes, and so I would like to ask you, if you haven't yet, please take 2 minutes to rate the show, leave a review, and we are making it super, super easy for you. All you have to do is go to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Again, ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. And of course, as always, thank you in advance. Today's episode is number 190. She was named as one of the top 50 women in Canadian real estate, according to Real Estate Professionals magazine. She is the broker owner of Lepage Connect Realty, a brokerage in Durham and Toronto with 6 locations and approximately 300 agents and staff. And she is also the CEO of Aligned Agent Academy. Over the last 25 years, she has helped over 1,000 agents to grow their 6- and 7-figure businesses by sharing strategies and systems that increase productivity and decrease overwhelm. Her mission is to share her Align method and systems to help agents create the freedom, fulfillment, and financial success that they desire. Joining me on this episode of the Mindshare Podcast is broker-owner of Lepage Connect Realty, Michelle Risi. Michelle, welcome back to the Mindshare Podcast.
Thanks for having me back again.
Yeah. So, hey, jumping right into it, because as we look around the landscape, and I know that there's a lot of questions coming up right now. What should we be doing out there? What is the market doing? I mean, we have seen some massive change going on out there. Rates are climbing. Inflation is up. Gas prices are like just astronomical. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. But let me ask you. You've been in the game a long time. You understand what's going on. What's your prediction on the fall market? What does that look like for agents as we sort of look ahead? Because one thing I know, like saying the fall while we're in the middle of summer is probably a bad word. Well, I also take the responsibility on myself, and I know you do as well, to get our agents prepared for what's ahead. And that's why for everybody tuned in right now, as much as we don't want to talk about the fall, we need to talk about the fall. So what are we thinking?
My gosh, let me get my crystal ball. I wish I had one. I really wish I could make these predictions, guys. I think really what we anticipate seeing is a lot of fear, procrastination, and avoidance from agents. That's what we're gonna see in the fall. And I understand, anytime there's changes like this, we come in with this scarcity mindset and we worry that, we're never going to get the business that we had. And of course, we came off of a strong and busy market. And so any kind of anytime we go through those changes and transitions, it kind of provokes that fear in people. Do I think we're going to crash? Absolutely not. Do I think that we're going to hit a recession that's going to impact the real estate market? I don't believe that we are. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. And it comes back to why I do what I do and why I preach what I preach, because when we are stressed out, or we are, fearful or worrying, we don't see the opportunities. We end up only seeing the obstacles. And when we see the obstacles, that's when we end up in avoidance behaviors and I can't do this or this doesn't work. So it's really important to remember that, first of all, we are a cyclical industry. Everything goes up and down. We're not a straight line. So it's normal, first and foremost, right? But I get that there's been a lot of agents who've been licensed for maybe 6 years or less who have never seen a balanced market. Right? In Ontario, they probably just have not seen that. So there's a lot of fear and uncertainty, like, oh my God, we're hitting 30 days on the market, for our listing. What does that mean? Oh my goodness, the sky is falling. And it's not, right? Those who have been in the industry for a long time know that this is normal. In actual fact, that's probably a great opportunity because you get to show your seller clients what you do. In the absence of things flying off the shelf within an hour, what are you doing other than preparing for it? So you don't have those opportunities. It comes back to the opportunities, I think.
Well, I was going to say, what are agents saying to you right now? Like, what do I do? Oh my God, sky is falling. Like, what do you think? Like, what kind of feedback? Because I know obviously we talk to a lot of agents out there, and I mean, there's some that we speak to. They're like, big deal. And then there's a lot of other ones, especially the ones that I'd say are probably newer in the business that have not seen that cyclical, just up and down of regular markets, regular business, regular whatever, that are very fearful right now. What kind of things are they asking you about? Like, what kind of questions are coming up specifically? And maybe from that, what kind of solutions are we trying to present to people at the moment?
Yeah, I think the biggest question I'm getting is, what do we do? What do we do? Yeah. What do I do? What do I tell my clients? That's the biggest fear. We're so dependent, I feel sometimes, on what's the right thing to say. What's the script I should use, right? Like as if there's this magic bullet out there. And I think we have to remember that we're dealing with people and people's lives and people's family dynamics. And it's not going to be the same across the board. So, when I get the question, what do I do? What do I say? It's start asking questions. That's the first place to start, right? Start asking your clients questions, because if you don't know what to do, it means you don't have enough information yet.
I love that. I was saying that to, I say that often, but it's dig for the need, right? It's those open-ended questions. Find out their motivation. Find out why they want to do it. Find out, do they need to do it? Find out what's the situation right now. I mean, that's something that I think that we're missing a lot of. And again, the past 24 months has really set this thing of like, hey, if I get the listing, I just put the son-in-law on, like at some point it's just going to sell.
Yeah.
Now it's not just doing that. Now it's really more a matter of how are you going to educate? How are you going to communicate? How are you going to prove the value? And then really figuring out, again, back to the client, because at the end of the day, it's the client's call on what they're going to do. Let's figure out where they're at. Because if they do have a motivation that they need to do it now, but they still have some uncertainty, we need to educate them on what's going on now versus what may, no crystal ball, but what may happen in 30, 60, 90 days from now. Do look and say, you can kind of follow the trends and do through the cyclical, and we go like, what's the fall going to look like? Naturally speaking, I mean, do we think it's going to be way, way, way up? I'm just going to go out there and probably put it out and say probably not. We might see it flatten out. We might see a tiny little blip, but we may continue to see a little bit of that drop. And again, the drop is not a bad drop. Like this is not sky is falling right now by any means.
It's correction.
The idea though is, that's what it is, right? Big time.
Yeah.
Right. It's adjustment. Correct. And when we look at the numbers are still on par with almost where they were last year around this time.
Yeah, here's the thing about stats, and anybody who knows me well knows I'm not a numbers person. I don't sit there and analyze the market in economics, and I don't try and make sense of it. But what I do know is this, that, every market stat can be skewed. And when you hear reports like, oh, we're down 40%, it's down from where? Down from the peak.
I like that.
Down from a normal market, comparable to what we're seeing. So what are we down from? Are we seeing a shift? Yes. Are we seeing a decrease? Yes. But does it mean that we're heading into a depression, recession, and the sky's going to fall and there's going to be a market crash? No, right? That's the fear talking. And again, it comes back to, I think it's important as professionals that we arm ourselves with the right information and as much information as we can, relevant information, not media junk, toxicity stuff, right? Really true, relevant information. Seek out the people that are the economists, seek out the people that do know the market, that have been through these things before. Get their perspective, get their feedback, right? Like we've said it 3 times already in this conversation. We don't have the crystal ball, right? Nobody has the crystal ball, but I think it's important to arm yourself with information so that you can now use your professional skills to make a judgment call, because nobody has the right answer. Nobody has the right answer.
Well, that's the thing about the communication, right? And I love that. The suggestion there, just talk to people and learn what you can, soak it in. Really break it down in your own mind and think to yourself, what is happening at this moment? Like, what am I hearing out there, and how do I guide people? And again, this will continue to circle back to the education and the communication portion of things, right? Because
Absolutely.
Once you get that sense of what's happening, you can then share that back to people. I mean, this takes me right into this next question here, that I guess when we look at the market itself, and again, not knowing what's happening, but or what's going to happen, but knowing exactly where we are today, do you think that right now is the right time to buy or sell a property? And as agents, because I'm hearing a lot about this, is like, how do I convince them to do something, or how do I get them to do something? And like, do we feel that we should be trying to convince people that this is the right time just so that we can get a deal done?
I think you know my answer to that one. It's so funny that, our biggest fear is that we're going to come across as sleazy, slimy salespeople, right? That is our biggest worry and fear. That's the biggest thing that we try to avoid. And we always want to make sure that that's not the impression that we're leaving. And yet here we are asking questions that, it's sometimes a wonder why people might have that perception of us, right? And it's not to say that it's wrong to want to make a living. We're in the business to make money. Nobody comes into the business to fail, right? That's not what we're talking about. But I think we have to remember that we're in a people business. And sales is about persuasion and influence, yes, but that doesn't mean that it has to be, slimy by any means, for lack of a better word. So, should we be, what was the word you used? Convincing people?
Trying to convince.
Yeah,
right.
I think it comes down to personal fit. I think it's you as a professional asking the right questions, finding out what the needs and motivations are, finding out what the long-term and short-term goals are for them, and then counseling them from that point, right? They make the decision. We don't make the decision. Having said that, it is our job to guide the process. And sometimes you have clients that do need to hear your opinion. And that's we have to be prepared to offer our insight and perspective on things. So to answer the first part of that question, is now a good time to get into the market or to buy and sell? I think if you're a first-time home buyer, I absolutely would be looking at getting in the market, because me personally, I'd be more worried about interest rates rising than waiting for prices to drop. I think that's more of a sure prediction than, sitting here waiting. Are they going to drop more? Are they going to drop more? I mean, this is a window of opportunity. So if you're a buyer, absolutely. If you're somebody that has a property to sell and then wants to buy, then I think you have to look at, is this a lateral move? Is it a move out of necessity because, circumstances have changed, right? It has to be a personal fit. And I think as professionals, that's our job, is to make sure that we're properly guiding our clients.
I love the way you changed the word there. Like, I'm asking about, should we be convincing people? And seriously, I love this. It was, we should counsel people. And I love the word of counsel because it's the same idea. And this goes right back to what we said a moment ago around education. Well, find out what their need is, find out what their motivation. Once you understand that, you may turn around and be trying to tell somebody like, yes, now is the time that you should be doing this. So that's not about convincing, but it's about taking what we know about the market, what we understand from what we do for a living, and going, based on what you're telling me, yeah, now is your time.
Yeah. And you hit it on the nose. Actually, what you just said there, that first statement is critical. for any professional in a sales industry, because they're coming to us because we are the professionals, because we should know more than they do. We should have some insight that they don't have. But the way to phrase that is based on what you've shared with me, based on what I am seeing, based on, right? So it's not that you're just giving somebody your personal opinion. It's your insight based on what the information that they've shared with you.
I think that is something that everybody tuned in needs to really soak in right now and understand, because, and Michelle, you said it a moment ago, and I'm just going to add, we are here to make money. So I'm with you guys, and I love money. Like I'm all for it. Like if I had all the money in the world, as much as I love what I do, I'd probably be riding my motorcycle and hanging with my kids even more than I do now. You know what I mean? Like it just is what it is. We all want to enjoy. So I get from having to make a living, and I understand from the fact that sales are down at this moment in time. That said, again, our job is not here just to go out and try to sell. Our job is to help people buy and sell. And by helping them, it comes back to the consulting and the way we go about helping them get there, rather than trying to convince them that it's the right move. Because the other thing I want to caution everybody about is, like, you know, now today, as you look ahead, for anybody that bought a house over the past 24 months that spent $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 over asking, that maybe they didn't even have, but they were able to get it because the money was cheap at the time. My fear, Michelle, is in 3 to 5 years when renewals come up, that's when people go, oh my God, I can't even afford to renew at the rates that are there today. I may need to sell at that point. And this is where what I'm doing is right now cautioning, like, everybody tuned in here as agents, just think about that as well. Think about the positions that, you know, you're going to help people get into. Is that the best position they should be in at the time? And again, don't just do it self-serving for yourself and your pocketbook right now. Think about the entirety of it collectively. And I believe everybody will win more in the long term if we do it right now.
Yeah.
You know
and
I
I
mean?
think, yeah.
So.
And, you know, in my 25 years of working in this industry and working with agents, I can tell you hands down that it's those tough calls where you feel like, oh, I really wish they would do this. You know, I could really use the money. I could really use this. But when you really align yourself with your integrity and you really check in with what is the right decision for them, and you put their needs first, that business comes back tenfold. And sometimes it's saying, no, I don't think this is the right choice for you. Or maybe now is not the right time based on what you're sharing with me, right? I know you really want this, you know, new whatever it is, but maybe right now is not the right time. I think when you give people your honest opinion and you're really genuine in listening, not just hearing, like you are listening to what it is that they're saying and what their dreams are. You know, you, again, guiding them through that process. And if it means now's not the right time, then now's not the right time. And trust me, people will respect that. We have to avoid getting into that transactional trap, because that transactional trap only feeds, you know, we talked about that scarcity mindset that I mentioned at the beginning. It only feeds that scarcity mindset, right? When you feel like, oh my gosh, they better do this now, or I might not, you know, get a paycheck, you know, in the next month, that's looking at things very fixed and scarce. And that's not going to help your business. It's not going to help you.
Well, here's one thing we know is that human nature, right? It's human nature that a lack of success brings upon negative thoughts, right? And about who we are, about what we do, about the success what success really looks like for us as people. How do we get past that way of thinking? Because you brought up the scarcity mindset, and I think a lot of people, again, make mistakes right now. They guide people in the wrong ways because they're trying to do a deal for themselves out of fear that they may not have something in the future. But at the same time, too, we got to think about everybody else involved in this whole thing right now. Right. So again, that lack of success, bringing on the negative thoughts. How do we get past that way of thinking? Like, oh my God, if I don't get it done now, it may never happen.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is I think the majority of, at least the people that I am surrounded by, I think the majority have their heart and their head in the right place. I think we all have those thoughts, but I think it's a small percentage of people that act on it in a selfish way. Right? I don't think that the majority of our industry is pushing people to do things or trying to convince them to do things that are not right. We might have the fears and worries. And that to me is more of a sign of the internal work that we have to do on ourselves. Because, you know, coming back to, you know, that scarcity mindset, right? How do we manage these thoughts and fears that, oh no, if this person doesn't buy now, I don't know when I'm going to find my next buyer client. Or if this seller decides not to sell now, I'm not sure where this next listing is going to come from, right? All of that is normal. And I think the way to start managing that, I call it mastering your mindset, because at the end of the day, it can take control over you if you allow it, if you don't have the right tools. And I think the first step in that is recognizing that we're wired to have these negative thoughts. It's part of our survival mechanism. If we never feared that, where are we going to get our food? Where are we going to find shelter? Like coming back to all of our basic needs, then we can put ourselves in danger very easily. So it's normal to have them. And I think that's the first step, is to recognize it's normal. But it doesn't mean we have to believe them, right? Just because we have the thought doesn't mean we have to believe the thought. They're not always right. It's not always true. So I think, it's important for us to recognize what are the thoughts that we're having. And are those thoughts leading us to action, or are they leading us to avoidance? Because depending on what step you take next, that's going to determine your level of success.
Okay, so when we know, I know I am totally in line with that. Like working on mindset is an absolute must. And it's something that it's interesting too, because I'll tell you, working with like my coaching clients and going through my own personal routines around reading and reviewing goals, being very scheduled throughout a day, practicing gratitude at nighttime, I find, and I know for like just living in my own shoes, that is where my alignment comes in. I try to teach the same thing to my clients. And I can tell when clients fall off. I can tell when I fall off every once in a while. And you can tell how all of a sudden you're not completely aligned. And it's like, well, how do I get back there? Well, come back this way and do the things that you know are working. So I've got stuff that I do. I've got stuff I suggest to people, but I'm curious, I know you're very much into this whole stuff with the mindset and just that positivity and again, abundance. What are daily actions that anybody here can take? And as we're talking about, really creating a 6 and 7 figure real estate business, what are some daily actions that we can all take to reframe our mind to one of positivity, to one of abundance, and really, again, help us work through and navigate those days, no matter what kind of day we're having, because we all go through the ups and the downs. What are some of those steps people can take?
We absolutely do.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah.
None of us can escape it, by the way. I'm sorry.
My God.
Everybody's going to have those days and moments and years and months, right? They come in cycles for us. So we can't avoid it. I think it's part of the human experience, like it or not. But I think, the first thing I would say is, and you kind of alluded to that, it's your daily habits. I think we have to look at what are the daily habits that we are doing? What are those daily behaviors? And again, are they moving us towards our goal or away from our goal? Do they make us feel good, or do they feed the toxicity that we're, surrounded by? Because unfortunately, that's what we are surrounded by, right? You scroll through social media, it can be toxic. You watch the news, it can be toxic. So I think there's an element there of, recognizing what habits are productive and which ones might be taking us away from our goal and making us feel worse. You said things like, gratitude practicing, just building in a very simple night routine. Like to me, everybody talks about morning routines, 5 a.m. club. And hey, if you can get up at 5 a.m. and feel good and do it. Like go, rock it. I am just
get
not
that worm.
Person. I'm just not that morning person. When I had small babies and trying to grow a business, it was next to impossible, right? I was exhausted and tired. And now it's my preference. And I choose to wake up early, but not to be like, boom, head on. Let me just get out of bed and get to the grind, right? So I like my slow mornings. But that I can make those decisions because I know me. And I think that's one of the first pieces. So when I talk about routines, habits, for me personally, my nighttime routines are critical for me. My day doesn't start when I open my eyes. My day starts the night before. And so, how do we know if we're out of alignment? It's being able to sit there at night and say, what went well, what didn't go well? What can I do differently tomorrow? What are my priorities for tomorrow, right? Really kind of checking in with ourselves. So our, daily habits, and that can just be as simple as a nighttime routine. I think, the other two things that I can say to that might be curious. Curiosity sparks and nurtures an open mindset, a growth mindset, because it means that you're open to being a beginner. at things. If you're not curious, you're very fixed in your ways. And you have your same things that you do all the time, which means it's going to be harder for you to adapt and change. And we know, based on the past few years of what we've experienced, if it hasn't hit you yet, we are constantly surrounded by change. We have to be able to adapt and be flexible and shift and pivot is the buzzword. So we have to be able to do that. So I think, your habits, stay curious, meaning lean into things, try things. Even if it's your social media posts, like my biggest philosophy around marketing is nobody knows the right answer. So put something out there and gauge the response. Nobody can tell you it's right or wrong. You can do that by putting it out there and seeing what your audience responds to. So be curious. And then I think the last thing I would say is really around clarity and self-awareness. I'm somebody that strongly believes that we are only as good as the awareness we have. We can't change things if we're not aware of them. We can't see opportunities if we're not aware of, where we might be getting stuck. So I think self-awareness is probably one of the most underrated, but probably the most critical skill an entrepreneur can have, because that opens the doors for everything, for mastering your mindset, for being able to be creative in your business, right? The more you know who you are, like everyone talks about their why. Why am I doing this? How about your who? Like, who are you doing this for? And who are you? And who do you want to become? So being able to tap in and be clear on what that means for you, only then can you make a decision that aligns with that, right? And you used the word align, so I'm going to kind of just keep going with that. But it's, for you to really stay centered and focused and feel good and start making decisions that are right for you, you can't do that unless you're self-aware. So those are just sort of a few things that quickly come to mind, right? That I can say for us to be able to continue to, work on our positivity or our mindset. They seem like nothing, but God, I got to tell you, change doesn't happen from one big thing. It's from the daily small steps that you do repeatedly and consistently. It's not the big thing. There's no magic pill.
As I'm sitting here nodding to like everything you're saying, I look like a bobblehead, but like I can't tell you how much. And for anybody listening to the episode, I guess picture that, but agree completely. I mean, again, those tiny little things we do every single day are what actually create the masterpiece that we're working towards, right? And we think about Rome, we think about the Mona Lisa, we think about all the tiny little, these big masterpieces in life, but brick by brick, brushstroke by brushstroke, action by action. And those little tiny things that we do in a day, like when I say to people, and I'm with you, if you're a morning person, you are the early bird, go get the worm. If you're the night owl, that's okay. You can do that too. There's no right or wrong. Just don't let either affect the things that you do in a day and the opportunities you create for yourself, right? But when I look at routine and the way you said, like my day actually starts yesterday, I cannot echo and stress that enough to everybody. And I know for those that are avid listeners to this show, you've heard me say it a million times, but Monday starts on Sunday. It's got to be like that because you cannot wake up Monday and go, okay, it's time to plan Monday. Like you are already late. Understand that, right? And then much the same too, that slow, lazy morning, love the slow, lazy morning, right? Because what it does is it says you got up earlier, and coming from like a sports guy, right? Like that whole thing about like, we're going to like go and repeat right now. Well, you cannot jump in the game if you didn't warm up. So this is the same idea. The game is what you do throughout the day. Those tiny little things that you do every single day to have success. The warm up started the night before when you planned the day, started the morning of when you woke up and got yourself aligned properly, right? I love the word there. And much the same to the way you said about the media and the news and the social media, and they can all be toxic. Like it's crazy, but it's gone from being the mainstream media being information based and social media being like ways to connect with people to all of it being labeled as toxic. And we all have been saying that for a while now. And I will say that I'm sure the past 24 months is really what has put that into our mindsets of like, it's that enough is enough. When I say morning routine, like this thing doesn't even come near me for the first hour and a half, right? There's no social media. There's no media. There's no nothing. It is me. It is my book. It is my goals. It is the plants that need to be watered, right? It is a little bit of hang time with my kids because they're still young enough to want to cuddle with dad in the morning. You know what I mean? Like that's the morning. Have my cup of coffee. Then by that time, I mean, I'll say it to everybody. I've said it before. Try keeping up with me at that point. I am so warmed up, like I am ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, as we said, it doesn't mean shit doesn't happen, right? Throughout the day. So how do you realign yourself at the end of the night to go, hey, dude, no matter what happened, whether good or bad, whether you got what you wanted or you didn't, guess what? You are here. It's now time to take one of these things, this powerful pen, write down all the good that happened today and to focus on the good, not the bad. Make sure I prepare for the next day and then go do it all over again. Right. And that to me, when we talk about, scarcity, we talk about abundance. When you can center yourself and recognize really the good that you have in life, no matter what negativity might have happened today, because it's going to happen, but you recognize the good. I mean, again, it's going to be very hard to knock you down. And now as you do that as a habit, that life of abundance starts to just become what you do and how you live. And again, you've now changed the paradigm in the way you operate.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So what you're describing, David, actually speaks a lot to the brain science and how we're actually wired to operate. And why it works to plan your day the night before is because your brain at night starts to process and filter information. This is why if you're not taking time, before you go to bed to kind of reflect and go through your day and you're constantly shoving things like, no, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about that. And then 3 a.m. rolls around and that's all you're thinking about. There's a reason for that, right? So your brain is primed naturally to filter and process information. So if you are not building into your nighttime routine 5 minutes, 10 minutes of just kind of going, okay, what worked, what didn't, I started off the day good. I ended up in a shitty mood, pardon the language, what happened? Because sometimes we go through the day and we don't realize what the trigger was. And if we don't realize what our triggers were, we can't go back and fix it and change our behavior and our response the next day. We are stuck in what's known as autopilot. So your brain processes information at night. In the morning, it acts like a sponge. So you saying, I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to just kind of internalize. I'm going to plan. I'm going to visualize, whatever it is that you do. Take 5 minutes to breathe, which we don't do enough of, right? You being able to do that and say, okay, before I consume information, I'm going to create, right? There's that rule of thumb, like create before you consume and do it in the morning. Why? Because your brain is a sponge. And what you give it first thing in the morning when it is wide awake and alert and it's finished, it's indexing and filing and filtering, it's now ready to absorb information. That's going to set the tone for the day. That's going to set your energy, your mood, your level of focus, your level of productivity. So those morning and night routines are hugely important, not just because they make us feel good, but there's scientific reason for it.
And you just use the word trigger. When we talk about habit and the routine and the habit of building out a routine or building out a routine and making it a habit, there we are, right? It really comes back to what creates a habit is trigger, action, reward, right? So something caused us to do, we did it. How do we feel about it after the fact?
Yeah.
And these are the things that if we can, again, align ourselves properly where the trigger, what it is we're doing, that we get done and we can recognize that we got it done, we're going to feel better about it. That's going to lead to more success. And well, that's going to start to say to us subconsciously, hey, you're doing good. Keep it up. You're feeling better. Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, look, I believe we should all want to be great. I don't think there's anybody walking around going like, I just want to be horrible. I just want to be shitty. Like, I don't want to do good. I want to be bad. Everybody searches for this idea of like perfection. I don't really think that there's a proper definition of what perfection looks like. And I really don't think people should seek out perfection as much as we might even say like we look for it. We all want to be really good. We all want to be, great at what we do. But I think everybody needs to understand like it's not realistic to be perfect, right? Trying to be the best version of ourselves and striving for that. Again, none of it being realistic. We all make mistakes. Why is it so important to learn from the mistakes as opposed to dwell on them? And what steps can we take to look at the situation in a positive so we can learn as opposed to dwell and I guess not be down on the current outcome, but almost leverage it to go, hey, great, that's all good. Like we've always heard the line, right? Like somebody says no. Well, no just means not right now. You can go through that. But other people might look at me like they said no. Like, what am I going to do today? How do we fix that? Like, why is it so important to learn from the mistakes?
Yeah, and it's interesting. So what you're reminding me when you share that is the response that I got, and I gave myself a good portion of my life and what I'm seeing around us. And it's so much easier said than done, right? It's so much easier said than done that to look at a mistake as a lesson as opposed to something that beats us down, right? When you're in it, it's heavy. When you make a mistake and you were aiming for some level of perfection, or you had this idea of what you wanted it to look like and it didn't go that way, it can totally knock you off your feet. And the reason why is because, first of all, we have to understand what is perfection, right? Perfection, procrastination, comparisonitis, they all kind of have a very common thread with them that runs through them. And they're what I call those brake pedal behaviors, right? We have these things in place because they stop us. And the brain is designed to stop us whenever it senses fear, whenever it senses that something is off. So, when we lean into perfection, believe it or not, is an avoidance behavior. It can't ever be perfect. We know this. Logically, we know this. There is no such thing as perfection. Yet, how often are we striving for this ideal or vision, right? If you ask somebody what a success means to you, I'm going to tell you maybe 1% can really describe to you, well, this is what I'm working towards. This is what it looks like. Most of us just kind of go, well, I don't know. It's just this general idea, right? So we're working towards this idea of success, this idea of perfect mom, perfect partner, perfect realtor, perfect business owner. But we really don't stop and question, what does that perfection actually look like? And when we don't have clarity on what we're working towards and what we're striving towards, that's when the mind comes in, and that's when those brake pedal behaviors kick in, and you don't actually take action. You end up avoiding. So the perfection part, I don't know if that answered your question entirely, but I think it's important just to kind of frame, what does perfection mean? Because it can look differently to everybody. Logically, we know there's no such thing, yet how come we constantly strive towards, it's not ready yet, it's not good enough yet? And it all comes back to, why does it feel so heavy for us? Why is it so easy for you, David, to say, but a no just means they're not ready? But to somebody else, it's like the whole world is caving in on them. They can't pick up after they get that no, if they're prospecting or doing whatever it is that they're doing. And it's because it's hitting a core need. I describe them as like pillars or buckets. As humans, we all have the, am I safe? Am I loved? Am I enough? These are the three things that run through every single one of us. And when we're very little, all the way up to adulthood, those buckets either get filled or they get drained. And if there's any kind of lack or void feeling in any one of those areas, it's going to show up in our business. This is why I speak so much about mastering the mindset, because if you're not aware of these things, they run the show. You end up having your 10-year-old self run your business instead of your 40-year-old self running your business, right? Because that 10-year-old is going, do people like me? Do people like me now? Am I doing this right? Right? And that's what's driving the decisions. So I think it's really important to just be mindful that, yes, there's no such thing as perfection. Yes, we all want to strive to be good. We all want to feel good in what it is that we're doing. But it comes down to whether this is actually productive perfection or avoidance perfection. Right. And my motto, and by the way, full disclosure, I am the recovering perfectionist. Like, I am somebody that spent years not doing anything. I joke, I wrote 2 books, 1 million courses. Nobody will ever see them because they're not good enough. Right. So I know what it feels like to constantly strive for that perfect thing. It's got to be good enough. It's, before I put it out there, or maybe people will judge it. I'm not going to put it out there, right? Well, we play these games with ourselves, but I've leaned into the motto that something done is better than a perfect nothing. That progress over perfection. Like, those two things I repeat. We talk about affirmations. That's probably one of my strongest affirmations that I repeat to myself constantly, because it's the reminder for me not to fall into that trap, because that's my vulnerability. We all have a vulnerability. Mine is, I know that I will be stuck if I think something's not ready or good enough, and I'll constantly try and perfect it.
I love that concept, brake pedal mentality. What's stopping us from doing, and it's certainly right there. That perfection is definitely one of them. That even learning from mistakes, it's, I know for myself personally, like, the whole idea about learning from mistakes is to sit back and go, look, we've made them. We're going to make them again. Now it's a matter of looking and saying, well, okay, what can I do to maybe help myself be a little bit better the next time? And it's not about chasing perfection, but it's going, hey, I did it. So what can I learn from it? And how can I be better with it? I know for myself, I mean, in the different things that we all do throughout a day and throughout our careers, I've had people that I've spoken to that I would ask, like mentors and guides that would, sit there, watch me, tell me what I'm doing wrong, or tell me what you think is not working, or whatever it be. And you get feedback from people. And listening to the feedback and being able to be open and accepting of it. We talk about constructive criticism, being able to accept that and run with it, as opposed to look at, down your nose at somebody and be like, how dare you? I think that's what helps us get better. And I think it's being able to eat a little bit of humble pie, being able to, deal with a little bit of humility, taking it in jest rather than, oh my God, I got to go bury my head in a corner for the next, week, 2 weeks, but just understanding, like, we all do it. We all do it, and it's okay.
It's
that thing of searching for
mentality.
and to searching for perfection. I mean, I've got things that are live out there right now that I look at and go like, oh, I got to make that better. But then all of a sudden, something good comes from that thing that's already out there, and you're like, well, but it's working. So I still think, how can I make it better? But I'm not. I'm working not to stop myself necessarily from the execution as well. And I think that only comes in time from finally kind of getting over that hump and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it regardless. I'm going to make sure it happens no matter what. And we're going to see what happens. And then you realize after the fact, it ain't that bad. It's like somebody who's like scared about putting out a social media post. I spoke to somebody today about that. I'm like, hey, why don't you put some posts out? He says, yeah, I'm going to do that in the next, like, probably week or two. I'm like, no. Today. Oh, yeah. Yeah, like now. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
But in our minds,
because the world moves too fast.
Yeah. And in our minds, we're running with the, am I loved? Am I good enough? Am I safe? Right? Those are the three things. And usually it's the, am I good enough, that shows up when it comes to things like social media. Right. And ask anybody, I'm sure anybody who's watching this today, go in your draft folder and tell me how many photos and videos or reels you have saved that you have not put out there yet. Why? I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I sound. I made a funny face. I stumbled on my words. I did a few ums. We can criticize and pick apart everything that we do. But again, you're not going to see results unless you take action. So, I've kind of hinged the conversation so far today on is it action or avoidance? Like, you've got to figure out and be aware of, are we taking action or are we avoiding? Avoiding is an action too, but are we taking aligned action towards the things that we need to have happen for us to see results? Or are we getting stuck in avoidance actions, which makes us feel like we're doing things, right? I can spend hours perfecting my reel. I can spend hours re-recording a video. Is it really going to make a difference if I, edit out a few extra ums or funny faces, or, I'm very expressive, Italian, I talk with my hands, right? So it's like, we can pick apart everything that we do. The reality is it's wasting time. It's not productive. It's not taking you in action mode, which needs to happen for you to get results. And here's the really one big secret we have to remember. Nobody sees us the way we see us. Like, plain and simple. The lens that we have about who we are is not the lens that everybody else shares. That is uniquely ours. As distorted as it is, that is uniquely ours.
So is this why we procrastinate? We're always searching for perfection.
Is this why? What was that?
We procrastinate because we're always searching for perfection. I mean, we know procrastination is a big thing. You just said it, the brake pedal mentality, like why we avoid things. Is it the bottom line? Just people are searching for perfection. It's
fear. It's a fear-based response. Yeah. Anytime
biggest
you
motivator
catch
out
yourself,
there, right?
It's anytime. Well, listen, we're wired for pleasure. We're wired to avoid pain. Those are the two human basic motivators, right? So if you're not moving towards things that make you feel good, you're making decisions to avoid painful or uncomfortable things. So anytime you catch yourself comparing yourself to other people, which then inevitably causes you to put the foot on the brake, right? I'm not ready yet. Oh, it doesn't look like that. Oh, I did it differently. But slams on the brake, no action is taken. Procrastination is the same thing. As soon as you get close to, picking up the phone, whatever it is, putting yourself out there on video, whatever action is causing you that bit of a fear response, your brain goes on high alert. It does what it's programmed to do. It senses something's off. It has you put your foot on the brake. And then you start cleaning your desk or cleaning out your fridge or fixing your business card or whatever it is that avoids what it is that you should be doing, right? And this is why I say that self-awareness piece is huge. Being able to master your mindset is huge because everything starts with your thoughts. We all know how to do our business, okay? There's not one person that comes into the industry that really does not know what to do. Right? We know instinctively it's around people. We have to ask questions. Okay, there might be skill sets we have to build, but we're humans. We can relate to one another. We understand and can empathize with what that journey needs to look like. But we don't allow ourselves to get there because we're constantly running around with this fear in our head. So it's not that we don't know what we're supposed to be doing in our business. It's just the thoughts that we're having. So everything that we want, everything that we're striving for, it starts in our mind first. Every other action, physical, that comes next. But everything starts with the thoughts that you're having.
Okay, so we say that action is critical to success. And I remember one time you brought that up where you talked about, 3 ways that agents can take more action to have even more success. And as we talk about this building the 6 and 7 figure real estate business, what are those 3 steps? I mean, have we covered those off today, or what can we leave with people here to say, here's 3 steps that you should be taking almost on a daily?
Yeah, I think the 3 steps are looking at your habits, right? What are you focusing on? How are you preparing yourself? How are you warming yourself up for your day, right? Taking a look at the daily habits, because it's never the one thing that's really going to have the biggest impact. It's all the daily things that you do consistently. I think clarity is the second piece, really being clear on what it is that you want, what it is what is the purpose, right? What is the why behind it? Who's the who behind it, right? Really getting clear on all of that.
I like that. Who's the who? I like that a lot.
Who's the who behind it? And then it's really the action piece. Those are the 3 things. And if you're not taking action, there's a reason why. And it's up to you to ask yourself why. What is it that's stopping me, right? What is it that you're thinking and believing? If you're afraid to give your clients, let's just circle back to where we started. If you're afraid to give your clients your opinion, why? Like, really ask yourself that question. Why are you afraid to share your insight based on the information that they've shared with you, right? Remember when I said nobody has the same lens that we have. So that is your unique advantage, is that you are listening differently than the way they listen to themselves. You can pick up on things that maybe they're not even aware of them saying. So it is your job and responsibility to be able to reflect and mirror that back to them. So if you're afraid to do that, that's you being afraid to do your job. Then the question has to be why? Why are you afraid? Why? And it doesn't mean to make it wrong, right? And none of this is to make it wrong, guys. We're all wired this way, but we can continue to accept that this is how we're wired and then stay stuck, or we can question it and say, okay, but this is not working for me. Clearly, I'm not getting the results that I want in my business, so something different has to happen. And you have to have the courage to start asking yourself those tough questions. And I think, you kind of touched upon it, and it does speak a lot to our ego. And that's not a bad thing, right? But, you being open and curious and having that beginner's mindset to take constructive criticism, to be able to ask what you could improve upon. Most agents don't even ask their clients, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? Right? Like, they're going to give you the information that you need. So, we don't do that very often. So if, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but, we have to be able to be open to experiencing what has to happen. And if you're stuck in fear or things are not happening, you have to ask yourself why. And if your ego is getting in the way because it feels like you should know the answer, you've got to silence that little voice and tell it to go color or something, go play, because it's just the little young you, right? That's showing up in your business, and it has no place at the table. You have to take ownership and responsibility of your business. And if you're not doing the things that you need to be doing, then you're not going to get the results. So it's up to you, clearly, right, to say why am I not doing this?
I think that right there, it's being able to accept it, being able to eat that humble pie, being able to get past our egos. And I think that everybody's got this level of like, oh my God, I don't want people to know that I didn't know, or I can't allow people to know that I'm asking questions about this. Everybody thinks that I should know this. Well, who told you everybody thinks that? Or is that just, again, you having this misconception, this perception of what people might think about who you are? We see many of the greatest of the great in sports, music, entertainment, you name it, being coached, having people there to help them, having people there guide them, having people there be able to tell them, here's how you can better. And this is why they continue to do better. And the ones that have the longevity are the ones that continue to strive for more. They continue to strive to be a better version of themselves. But we need to get past the humility for ourselves, the ego within ourselves that allows us to get better. Because again, that question that you just had, like, why are you scared to say something if you know what you're doing? Well, it could be because you're not doing enough learning. Maybe you're not feeding your brain enough. And I think that people don't put enough onus on how important it is to feed the brain on a daily basis. It could be listening to this podcast. It could be reading a book. It could be watching a video, but taking something in with some new information that's not media related information of news or social or whatever. No, I'm talking like this constructive stuff that's going to help you build this muscle. Right.
Yeah.
So to that then, what is, as we've talked a lot about today, again, how to grow this real estate business to be successful. We've really focused a lot today on this mindset concept. What is working for agents who are having success right now? What are we seeing others doing which is not working? And does this maybe just come back to, again, bottom line, like we could almost summarize with one word and say mindset?
I hate to simplify it that much, but that is.
I'm so with you, though. Truth. I know.
Listen, in my own business, in our own businesses, right, we experience the same thing. Running a business with 300 agents, having, come from a family business that has over 1,000 agents, my 25 plus years experience working with thousands of agents, I can tell you guys from my experience, the agents that do well do not have anything up on you. They are not smarter, better, whatever label you want to put to it. It's simply because they're doing. They know what they want. They have a plan designed and they figure out what's stopping them from doing what they need to do. It doesn't mean that they're not scared. It doesn't mean that they're not making mistakes. It doesn't mean that they're not getting the no's. It doesn't mean that their life is perfect. It doesn't mean that they have more money than you to invest in their business. They're simply figuring out, why am I not doing what I'm doing? First of all, what am I supposed to be doing? Secondly, why am I not doing it? And then figuring out all the ways it takes them to take action. Because I don't know any other way to put it other than action is the only thing that's going to get results. I can sit here and dream up my best business, my best client, my best social media post. None of it matters. None of it matters unless I put it out there and take action on it. So I think that to me that's been my ongoing life lesson in everything, right? We can want what we want. We can desire what we want. We can dream it up, but if there's no energy and action behind it, nothing's going to happen. No change is going to be made. You're not going to see anything. So the agents that are doing well are not sitting here wondering which CRM system is the best one to use and which lead generation is the best one to use and is cold calling dead. And they're not asking themselves these questions. They're not procrastinating because that's an avoidance response. Yeah, they're just doing, and they'll tell if it's working or not. They're not going to listen to someone else's opinion of whether flyers work or cold calls work or social media works. They're doing it and they're deciding for themselves whether or not this works or not. So it all does come down to mindset, unfortunately, fortunately, right? And I say that it's two sides of the coin, but it means you have full control over changing it. Like you're not a victim to whatever circumstance you're dealing with.
This, as we sort of wrap this up and look at, we've used this word a few times now, align. Sounds like a lot of those people are aligned with what they need to do, with what they're going to try to make it happen, and what they might need to do to adjust where they need to be. I know that align is something that you leverage as part of the mindset, but define that more for us, because I know you can go and I'll put it out there because I want people to come visit you on Instagram and everywhere else they can. We'll figure out those contact pieces in a moment, but even on your Insta, it's like the stories there, right? Align. Tell us more about that for a moment.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. So definitely, if you guys are interested,
I imagine, and that's why I think people need to reach out and learn more for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you where it originated from. It originated from my personal experience and struggle with showing up as a female entrepreneur and feeling like I was always doing it wrong, or feeling like I had to do it the way other people were doing it. And, it got me results and then it didn't get me results. And it was this up and down teeter-totter motion that I was experiencing. One day I was happy, the next year I wasn't, right? And it was my journey into realizing that nobody else has the answers other than me. Everything that I do in my business has to and needs to be a reflection of my blueprint, because nobody's built like me. Nobody has the energy levels that I do. Nobody, we all have those differences, right? And so Align really was a concept. It started as the concept of, God, why are we looking outside of ourselves for all these answers? Like, just because this person's top 1% doesn't mean they have my answer. Like, I have to figure it out. They figured it out for themselves. I have to figure it out. Certainly take clues from people. Like, success leaves clues. Don't get me wrong. But we have to, at some point, come back and say, what's going to work for me? How do I want this to look? And so the Align concept then turned into a method that I use and teach in my programs and in my brokerage. And it's a way for us to move through the growth cycle to eventually take action. Like, what are all of the skill sets that we need to have as entrepreneurs in order to see the results that we want? And then that kind of born into the Aligned Agent Academy, which is really my playground. It is my playground for me to be able to share what I know, share what's worked for me, to be able to guide people with my experience and expertise, and to make an impact and difference for people. Because, here's what I know to be true. The most painful place to be in is when you're stuck, because you can see what's out there, right? When you're stuck, you can see what's out there. And it's so painful to feel like it's just within reach, but you don't know how to get there. And sometimes it's just a little nudge. Sometimes it's just a change in your habits. I mean, it doesn't have to be big, right? We talked about that. But that's kind of Align in a nutshell. It's a way for people to start coming back to who they are so that they can design the business and the life that they want. Because what freedom looks like for you might not look like for me. I certainly don't want to be on the back of a motorcycle, David.
Ah, come on. What about like on the front, like on the actual like seat that's like driving the motorcycle? That's my yoga. Okay. That's where I am at. I am getting aligned right there. Okay.
Right. But imagine if we all felt like we had to be on a motorcycle to find freedom.
Oh my God. Well, some people call it a yoga class. Other people do I jog. I mean, I don't know why people jog. No, I'm joking. But look, talking today about like that, way too much effort for me. But no, but seriously, creating a 7-figure real estate business. I think today we've been able to really boil this down to, to everybody listening. Like, there are a lot of different things you can do out there. There's a lot of people you can listen to. There's a lot of different things you can feed your mind or pollute your mind with that may or may not work. And by all means, again, we did say, learn, listen, ask questions. That said, as Michelle just mentioned as well, it's action, right? Take action, make something happen. And I think as we boil it all down to how do we create this 7-figure real estate business amongst everything we talked about this past hour, align yourself with who you are. Align yourself with what you want. Align with yourself with exactly what needs to be done to kind of get you to your next level. Blinders on, headphones on, focus on you. And when you focus on you, you will find that success that you are ultimately looking for.
Yeah. And you'll find the systems and the strategies that work for you. I think that's what it comes down to as well, right? Because sometimes we overcomplicate our systems in our business. And that's why we're not taking action, right? Like, we feel like we've got to do 10 reels a week and be on video and show up on every platform. Yeah. And that's just too overwhelming to actually take action on, right? So it's figuring out what is going to work for you in the moment. And that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. It can change too.
You brought this up a few minutes ago, and I'm going to re-ask it to you because it's funny. It's funny how you brought it up. Completely unprepared to where I was going to go with this, but you said about success, right? And how people define it. I actually want to ask you, how do you know it's been a successful day for you?
Yeah, great question. Totally unprepared for that.
Because you even said it before, you walked right into that before. You're like, most people wouldn't know how to define that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me,
it is a tougher question to answer, funny enough.
It is. And it is and it isn't, right? If you start to build in that nighttime routine that I talked about, where you are identifying what your top priorities are, right? Here's the reality. Our to-do list will never go away, right? And my list people that are listening right now are going to know, like, it's an addiction to keep adding things to the list so that you can check them off the list. And that's never ending. So it's important for us to be able to say, what are the three things? Like, I love the number 3. To me, it's just always manageable. The brain likes it. Everyone's happy when we're dealing with number 3s, right? So what are the 3 things?
Except for if you have 3 kids. I think it's wiser to have only 2 kids, one for each.
Right, then you're outnumbered.
Total exactly. Sidebar.
Yeah, then you're outnumbered. I'm totally with you on that one. But what are the 3 things that I need to do tomorrow? I get my to-do list is long, but if I accomplish these 3 things, I can feel good about myself. I can feel like I've been productive. I can feel like I've moved the needle forward. Right? Because otherwise we keep looking at this list and it feels like we're never done. The day is never done. I didn't accomplish anything. So that feeling of success comes from feeling accomplished, feeling like you completed something, feeling like you're productive. So for me, it comes back to, what are the 3 things that I need to do that are my top priorities? When I can get those done, I can feel good that I know I've had a productive day. It also comes back to, how aligned was I throughout the day with who I want to be? Like, it really comes down to, was I a bitch to everybody around me? Mostly my family, because I would never, of course at work, we always show up in our best light, right? But it was like, right. Did I show up in who I wanted to be today? Is this the person I want to be? Are these the outcomes I wanted? Did I make the impact that I needed to have? Did I show up as the person that I need to be for my business and for everything else? So that's how I personally define whether or not I have a successful day. It's not by the measure of, how many conversations I had, how many, deals did we do? I don't measure things based on those numbers and metrics. It really comes down to, did I do what I needed to do? Number 1. And do I recognize myself at the end of the day?
Well, one thing I pick up on is it does not revolve around how much money you made today. And the second thing we look at is, did I do what I needed to do? Which, as we talk about again from the whole alignment, is you plan your day for today. You got up. We talked about habits. We talked about the routines. Did I execute on the things that I set out to do? And if you did, you will find those rewards in time. Those rewards will make the things that you did, those actions, it'll make those habits. And the trigger will always be, plan myself tonight so that I'm ready to kick ass tomorrow.
Exactly.
Any final words, tips, anything that you just want to add on before we sign off today?
No, you know what? Other than, I know we've kind of talked about creating a 7-figure real estate business. And I do want to add the little caveat there that not everybody that comes into the industry wants to create a 7-figure real estate business. So if that is you that is
great
listening, right? If that is you that is listening, take what was shared and make it apply to whatever goal you want for your business or for your life, right? Not everybody wants or needs to have a 7-figure business. That's not everybody's main goal, right? There's a lot of people that come into our industry. Here's the interesting thing. And David, you and I have talked about this because we've known each other for years, but once upon a time, this industry did attract that typical salesperson personality, right? The very highly driven, highly dominant, self-starting, goal-oriented kind of person. And the drive was for financial reward and success, right? Those were the metrics that we look at. Where do I rank? How many sales did I do? And all of those metrics are important, right? Any information is important for us to gauge whether or not we're doing what we need to do. But there's been a shift over the last 20 years with a lot more people entering the industry that are the helpers. The teachers, the healthcare workers, the people who really just want to feel good about the work that they do. And we do have that opportunity with real estate. It's one of the most amazing industries that we could be in, when you can tune out the toxicity and the noise and really come back to why it is that we're here. So when we look at that, I just wanted to, again, just kind of emphasize, it's not about the 7-figure. Use the 7-figure business as just a replacement for whatever it is that you want to get
a methodology to whatever it is you're looking to achieve.
Exactly.
I love, sorry to interrupt, I love the fact that you brought that up, because we should actually totally clarify that for everybody tuned in again. Yes, we title 7-figure business. It sounds bright and shiny. It sounds elusive. Everybody wants to kind of hit this, but no, not everybody wants to hit this. Some people are very happy making a certain amount. And I will say though, as you've listened to the content of this episode today, everything that was shared is in an effort to help you get to that place that you want to get to. So let's take the 7 out of the whole thing and just say that end game, that person that you want to be, everything we talked about today is exactly how you're going to get yourself there. It's not about the monetary. It's more about that mindset, that life of abundance, that happiness in life that you feel fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with a 7-figure business.
But, no. We already said that.
But it is a different level of working. Agents, most agents who are at that level have teams, have, operate a different way. And not everybody wants that for their business, right? Some people really just enjoy that personal interaction. So yeah, I think whatever it is that you want is perfect and good, and it's all achievable and possible.
Michelle, where can people find you? I really want everybody to tap into more of you, your mindset. I know the Instagram account, the academy. I mean, you've been doing some amazing things for a number of years in this business. I know a lot of people that follow the tutelage really live by it. And so I want more people to at least be able to lean on you and be exposed to what you're offering. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, I think the easiest place it would probably be check out my link in the bio section of Instagram, because there I have all the links to the Aligned Agent Facebook group, the YouTube channel, the courses, whatever it is that I'm up to. That's probably the easiest place for people to kind of get that information and find me. But otherwise, like David, I'm pretty much on all platforms or try to be. But Instagram is probably the easiest place for people to go.
And that's at Michelle Risi.
At Michelle Risi, yeah.
Perfect. So check her out. Go over to Instagram, click on the link in her bio, connect with Michelle, learn more about what she's up to. Again, a good friend and, longtime colleague, of course, but love the mindset. Absolutely amazing. And I thank you so much for joining me back on the show today. Thank you for joining us on the Mindshare podcast.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding? It's totally my honor and pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, we will certainly do it again shortly.
Love it.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle for Realtors. This is a 31-page ebook packed with a ton of tips and tricks for you. Plus, it's a ready-to-go 90-day social media content counter to help you build more mindshare so that you can get more market share. And of course, if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching to help you get to your next level, get in touch with my team. We'll set up a free consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how we will help you do just that. Of course, if you want to talk about keynote speaking for an event that you've got coming up for this upcoming fall, a big kickoff, talk to us about that. We've got a bunch of topics for you, and we'll definitely keep your audience on the edge of their seats. And further to that, we've also got the Momentum Training Program. This is a virtual training program. It is progressive. It is loaded with content, tips and tricks. It is live. It is roundtable meetings. We've got workbooks. Again, absolutely loaded. Find out about one-to-one coaching, keynote speaking, and ongoing training for you and your group. Also, don't forget that our push to 100 is on. All you have to do, and this is super easy, is go to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. And of course, if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to thank Virginia Munden and the Buzz Conference for sponsoring today's episode. Be sure to visit their website, www.thebuzzconference.com. Follow them on Instagram at The Buzz Conference. Keep tabs on all of the amazing events they are always hosting, along with getting the latest copy of the Buzz Digital Magazine. And don't forget about their event coming up September 7th and 8th, Disruption 2022. Get your tickets and do it right now. Of course, I want to thank Kids Keep in Touch Systems for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't checked this out yet, go to my website, mindshare101.com, and click on marketing. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.